His attorney leaned close and whispered 5 words. Just 5, and Grant's smug face drained of color. The pen in his hand started shaking like it hated him. Papers he couldn't wait to sign fluttered like storm leaves. And me, after years of swallowing my rage, I smiled. But I'm skipping ahead. Let me go back. You need the full picture to understand that smile. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind, that I'd been broken, softened, trained into silence. They were half right. I was trained, just not the way they assumed. My name is Maren Holt. I'm in my mid-30s now, and 3 months ago, my marriage ended on a Tuesday. Not with tears, with a transaction. I met Grant when I was barely an adult. I left school early, not because I was brilliant, because I needed out of my house. Out of noise, out of control, out of being managed. I got a job at a small legal office downtown. Not some fancy skyline firm. A beige building that smelled like toner and old coffee. I started as a file runner. Minimum pay, maximum paper cuts. I learned fast. Names, forms, deadlines that didn't care about your feelings. I was good at details, good at numbers, good at staying quiet and noticing everything. Grant came in for a client mixer. He wasn't rich yet, but he talked like he already owned tomorrow. Real estate, he said. Renovations, flips, development. Big words, bigger smile. He looked at me like I was an answer. Like my steadiness was a resource. He said, I'm building something real. I said, then you'll need clean paperwork. Romance, right? We married young, and soon after, we had our son Rowan. I worked part-time and raised a baby. I stretched groceries into meals. I stretched sleep into functioning. I saved. Always saved. Because my grandmother drilled one line into my bones. Have money that's yours. Not hidden, just yours. Something no one can snatch during a storm. When Grant's projects finally took off, he got bold. He said he needed me full-time. Not because he loved me, because he trusted my labor. I became his unpaid backbone. Bookkeeping, scheduling, vendor calls, client emails at midnight, staging model homes so strangers could fall in love, social posts that made him look like a visionary. My title was wife. My job was everything else. And for years, I told myself this was partnership, that someday he'd say my name out loud in a room. He didn't. At events, I was Grant's wife. He thanked his mentors, his team, his grit. Somehow, he never circled back to me. Then the shift started. Quiet at first. Decisions made without me. Meetings I wasn't told about. Late nights that became normal. And criticism. My clothes weren't polished. My meals were routine. My goals were small. He said I lacked ambition. I was running his entire back office for free. But sure, small. Then came the Tuesday. I was cooking his favorite dinner. Because apparently I love unappreciated effort. Grant sat down like he was reviewing a proposal.
I want a divorce, and I want the house, the cars, the business, everything. You can keep Rowan.
He said it like he was ordering off a menu. Assets for him, child for me. Like our son was a leftover container in the fridge. I stared at him across the salt shaker. 15 years at that table, and this was the ending. Not sorrow, not apology, just entitlement. What I didn't know then was he'd planned it. He already had an attorney. A calm, expensive man who billed confidence by the hour. While I scheduled dentist appointments, he built an exit ramp. The next day, his mother appeared. Celeste Kessler. Perfect hair, perfect petty face. She patted my hand like I was staff. She told me I should have worked harder to keep her son happy. Men have needs, she said, like she was explaining weather to a child. That week blurred. Grant moved me to the guest room. Documents started flying. Dates. Proposals. Reasonable terms that were only reasonable for him. Everyone saw a woman drowning. A wife tossed aside. A mother scrambling. a loser in a story they'd already decided. But here's the truth. I'd been preparing for 3 years. Quietly, patiently, because 3 years earlier, I found something in his books. It was a normal night. Grant was working late. I was reconciling accounts like always. Then I saw a transfer I didn't recognize. Then another. Then a pattern that made my stomach go cold. Money leaving. Small streams becoming rivers. Accounts I hadn't opened. Payments labeled like harmless admin. I stayed up past midnight, then past 2, following the trail like a bloodhound. And I found the truth. Grant wasn't building an empire. He was stacking debt and calling it success. The house everyone envied? It wasn't ours. It was collateral with layers of borrowed promises, multiple loans, refinances, and a fresh lien I'd never approved. The business looked shiny, but it was gasping. Credit lines stretched to the limit. Vendors unpaid long enough to start sounding angry. Taxes delayed. Temporary, he would have said. And the spending? It didn't come home. Trips I wasn't invited on. Watches that didn't help pay invoices. A private rental under a name I didn't recognize. A life lived outside our life. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, surrounded by printouts. My hands didn't shake. My whole body went still, like an animal realizing the ground is thin. My first instinct was to confront him, to throw the papers in his face, to demand the truth with my voice breaking. But I knew Grant. If I confronted him, he'd twist it. He'd call me paranoid. He'd say I misunderstood. He'd blame my stress, my moods, my lack of vision. And if he knew I knew, he'd go after my separate money. The money my grandmother taught me to protect. Because yes, I had my own. A retirement account from my early work years, and an inheritance my grandmother left me, written clearly as mine alone. I never mixed it into his business. Never used it to cover his shortfalls. Never handed him a handle to grab. So I didn't confront him. I protected Rowan. I worked with a trusted family accountant to set up a locked structure. A legal box built for my son's future. Education. First home. Emergencies. Untouchable by anyone who played dirty. Then, I documented everything. Every loan statement, every hidden transfer, every signature that wasn't mine. Copies off-site, copies in a safe place, copies encrypted because I didn't trust the air in my own house. And then I waited, because men like Grant always leave. They don't end relationships. They replace them. They don't seek fairness. They seek applause. Back to the divorce week. Within days, Grant treated me like a tenant. My closet shrank. My keys felt temporary. The message was clear. You're already gone. 2 weeks later, he brought her around. Lila Crane. Young, glossy, the kind of person who looks expensive even in sweatpants. She walked into my kitchen like it was a showroom, used my blender, wore my apron, not just any apron, my grandmother's faded one. And Grant watched it happen like it proved something. They sat on my couch, ate off my plates. He put his arm around her right in front of me, like I was furniture, like I'd already been erased. Then the humiliations escalated. First, he canceled my card.
We need to separate finances.
Then he froze the joint spending. Then he suggested I should find somewhere else while we sorted it out, as if my home had become a waiting room. His mother arrived again to help, which meant she sorted my life like thrift store donations. Clothes, maybe. Photos, selectively. Keepsakes, judged. She packed my belongings in trash bags. Not boxes, trash bags. Through all of this, I thought I had one safe person. My longtime friend, Tessa Vale. Years of friendship. Shared history, the kind you think can't be bought. She showed up with sympathy and a bottle of wine. She listened. She said I deserved better. But then strange things happened. Grant seemed to know my plans before I'd made them. I mentioned a legal move to Tessa. The next day, Rowan repeated Grant's opinion like it was fact. I mentioned a neighborhood to Tessa. Grant mocked that exact neighborhood at dinner. And then it clicked. Tessa wasn't my friend in this war. She was his wire. Looking back, the signs were embarrassing. The way she brightened when he entered a room, the way she laughed a fraction too hard, the way she always asked about him first. Not me. Him. Grant collected admirers like trophies. He fed them little scraps of attention, and they starved happily for more. Tessa sold our friendship for the hope of being chosen. But the worst part wasn't Grant, or his mother, or even Tessa's betrayal. It was Rowan. My son watched everything. The girlfriend in our kitchen, trash bags on the floor, his father speaking about me like I was an obstacle, and Grant worked on him.
Your mom is making this hard. I just want everyone happy. She's dragging it out. I'm trying to be fair.
Rowan started pulling away, not angry, confused, torn between the loud, confident parent and the quiet, exhausted one. Watching him doubt me was the wound that bled. I hired a lawyer, a woman named Harper Sloan, older, sharp, allergic to nonsense. She walked me through my rights. Half the marital property, she said. The house, the business, the vehicles. She assumed I wanted war. I let her think that at first, because I needed her ready. But I also needed Grant to believe I was weak. I moved into a small apartment with Rowan. 2 bedrooms, 1 narrow bathroom, a kitchen smaller than my old pantry, boxes stacked like a monument to loss. Meanwhile, Grant posted online like he'd been reborn. New chapter, new energy. Blessed. His mother applauded in comments like it was a graduation. People flooded me with advice. Take him for everything. Get a shark. Don't be a doormat. And I nodded. I let them see sadness. I let them underestimate my spine. Because underestimation is a gift. People stop watching you. They stop guarding their edges. They speak carelessly around you. That's when you gather the last pieces you need. I showed up to mediation looking wrecked. Red eyes, shaky hands, a voice that sounded like it could break on command. I asked for almost nothing, a modest cash amount. My personal belongings, shared custody. That was it.
Fine. Done. Let's finalize it.
He agreed too fast, like a man signing a receipt, not ending a life. He looked at me with something like pity. Like I was wounded and he was merciful. Every week, his arrogance grew. He got sloppier. He bragged louder. He stopped pretending to be kind. He bought something flashy and wore it where I'd see it. He took Leela to a restaurant that used to be our place. He let her repaint parts of the house like she was erasing me with a roller. Tessa kept calling, fishing for information. I fed her exactly what I wanted Grant to hear. That I was tired. That I couldn't fight. That I'd settle for crumbs. And it worked. Because within hours, Grant would relax even more. You can feel it when a predator thinks you've stopped running. Rowan, though, was watching. My son noticed contradictions. New luxury on Grant's wrist, but no budget for Rowan's school trip. Shopping bags at the house, but speeches about being tight on money. One night, Rowan sat at our second-hand table. He looked straight at me, too serious for his age. "Mom," he said, "is Dad actually rich?" I didn't answer too quickly. I let him find his own footing. "What do you think?" I asked. He swallowed. "I think he's pretending." I squeezed his hand. "You're not wrong," I said softly. "Just wait a little longer." Behind the scenes, Harper prepared the final trap. The divorce agreement stated I gave up claims to marital property. House, business, vehicles, Grant gets it all. Clean, simple, exactly what he wanted. But attached to it was the liability disclosure. The part people skip because it's boring. The part that ruins lives because it's accurate. The disclosure listed every obligation tied to those assets. The mortgages, business debts, leases, personal guarantees. All of it, in plain language, in black ink. And the key line was simple. Whoever takes the assets assumes the liabilities. Meaning, Grant wasn't taking riches. He was volunteering to wear an anvil. 2 weeks before court, Grant's attorney called Harper. He asked for verification, a review, something responsible. Then, Grant shut it down.
No audits. I know what I'm worth.
We're not delaying this.
His attorney warned him anyway, and because attorneys protect themselves, a waiver appeared. A form stating Grant declined independent review against counsel's advice. Grant signed it without reading, just like he signed most things. He'd always assumed the world was obligated to favor him. The night before the hearing, he texted me.
Thanks for not making this ugly.
I stared at that message so long my screen dimmed.
Years of work, loyalty, and sacrifice. And he thanked me for being convenient. I texted back exactly what he wanted to see. I just want what's best for Rowan. The next morning, the courthouse smelled like old wood and floor polish. People whispered like secrets lived in the walls. Grant walked in first, confident, dressed like a winner. His mother sat behind him like a judge's assistant. Lila waited outside, scrolling, bored. I walked in a few minutes later. Simple dress, no jewelry, tired eyes, the perfect costume of defeat. The judge reviewed the file, asked if we understood the agreement, asked if anyone cushered me. I kept my voice soft. I understand, I said. I just want him to have what he asked for. And the judge, seeing an adult with counsel, proceeded. Documents went out. Page after page. Signature lines like stepping stones. Grant signed fast. Hungry. Eager to finish and celebrate. I signed slow. Deliberate. Savoring each stroke. Because I'd been waiting 3 years for ink, Grant's attorney reviewed the packet like a professional does. Agreement, asset schedule, settlement terms. Then he reached the liability disclosure. I watched his face change. Confusion, then a flicker of alarm. He flipped pages back and forth like the numbers might soften. They didn't. He leaned toward Grant, and that's when he whispered those 5 words. The 5 words that turned Grant white.
What do you mean, debt?
Grant glanced down, finally reading the part he'd ignored. His eyes moved faster than his brain could cope. Obligations tied to the house. Obligations tied to the business. Obligations tied to everything. His chair scraped as he jerked upright.
This isn't right. She hid this. This is fraud.
The judge's voice cut through him, sharp, final. Sit down, the judge said. Grant sat, but his hands were shaking. The confident smile evaporated like spilled alcohol. The judge looked at Grant. Are you saying you don't know your own finances? Silence filled the room like heavy smoke. Grant's attorney cleared his throat. He explained he recommended a review. He produced the signed waiver, the one Grant had signed without reading. The judge read it, then looked back at Grant. Is that your signature?
Yes.
Then you assumed the risk voluntarily, the judge said. The agreement stands. Grant turned to me, desperate now.
You knew the whole time.
I met his eyes, calm as winter glass. I handled your books, I said. Of course I knew. His face cycled through emotions, like a broken light. Rage. Fear. Then the one I'd waited for. Realization.
I want to withdraw it. I didn't understand. This isn't fair.
The judge shook her head. You had counsel. You declined review. You signed in this court. These are your obligations. Final. The gavel hit. Paper settled. Grant's world cracked open. I stood, smoothed my dress, picked up my bag. I looked at him one last time. He slumped over the documents like they were a grave, and I gave him a quiet line, the one that mattered. You wanted everything except Rowan, I said. I gave you exactly what you asked for. In the hallway, Grant's voice rose behind glass. Accusations, threats, blame thrown like darts. His attorney stayed calm, because paper is calm. Outside, Lila listened for 10 seconds, long enough to understand. Then she turned and walked away fast. Her exit was quicker than her entrance into my marriage. Sunlight hit my face like permission. The air felt warm, clean, mine. The collapse came fast. The house couldn't sell for what was owed. The business couldn't breathe with frozen credit. Vendors got loud. Banks got louder. The image Grant worshipped shattered under math. His mother started calling relatives, asking for loans, offering excuses dressed as explanations. Tessa called me, voice shaking, trying to rewrite her part, saying she didn't know, saying she never meant it. I didn't give her closure.
Some betrayals don't deserve conversation. Rowan watched the truth land, not because I lectured him, because reality teaches better than speeches. One evening in our small apartment, he said it quietly. "You waited for years," he said. "You protected me first." I nodded. That was my job, I told him. Not being a wife, being your mother. He hugged me. A real hug, not a polite one. The kind that says, "I see you." The kind that heals. I used my settlement to stabilize our life. Rent, furniture that didn't wobble, groceries without counting coins. And I enrolled in night classes, design, the dream I shelved while building his image. Now I built my own, one room at a time, one choice at a time. Months later, Grant showed up at my door. He looked smaller, hollowed out, the shine gone.
I didn't know it was this bad. I made mistakes. Can we talk? Maybe we can...
He couldn't finish the sentence. He wanted help. My help. After everything, I leaned against the doorframe, calm, polite, final. "You asked for everything except Rowan," I said. "You got it."
Nanan, please.
"Goodbye, Grant." I closed the door, and for the first time in years, the quiet felt safe. Later that night, I looked at my grandmother's photo. Her old recipe card box sat beside it. The thing that mattered. The thing that stayed. "You were right," I whispered. "Know your worth. Protect what's yours. And let greedy people carry their own weight." My apartment was smaller than the life I had before, but every decision inside it was mine. Every color, every chair, every breath. And that smile from the courtroom, that wasn't revenge. That was freedom.